Hello and welcome to another episode of the Equilibre Animal podcast. Today we are looking at the separation anxiety. The topic of separation anxiety is not that easy to handle. Too many factors play a role in it. I'll first delve into the history from wolf to dog at the side of humans. Then we'll take a look at the circumstances of separation anxiety, and finally, I will discuss how to manage it. The wolf is a social being that lives in a family group. Humans are the same, and so are dogs. The advantage is obvious. We are simply safer, and each individual has a greater chance of survival. The single person household is not that old and only became possible with industrialization. Before, people and animals mostly lived close together and had plenty of space. Dogs were kept outside where they usually entertained themselves. We still see this today in the south and east where most dogs roam free. I'm not going to focus on the possible downsides or a yes, but. It is simply the counterpart of our lives today. The extreme is the single person in a city apartment. That's completely fine. I also lived like that and I didn't find it bad at all. Later, I also had a dog. But my dog came to work with me every day. I taught him early to stay alone and he managed it well. Dogs were rarely kept alone. They usually lived in communities with other animals or humans. It's not their nature to live alone. Recently, I read an article that many house cats suffer from depression because they are kept alone. I don't know where people got the idea that it's completely okay to lock an animal in an apartment for hours against their nature, just because we can. Pet ownership is about our pleasure. We keep animals for our well being. We want an animal to talk, to cuddle with, or train. The animal is rarely asked. Additionally, there are breeds like the beagle or pack dogs. These dogs are not designed to live alone. Besides the breed, individual character, experiences, and socialization also play a role. A puppy separated from its mother and siblings at 8 weeks experiences its first trauma. In the past, people liked to wait until the 12th week, but today they believe the 8th week is fine. It will work, says the human. And he should know. At least that's what he thinks. Now, this ultra cute puppy is taken into the new family. At this age, whether 8 or 12 weeks, the puppy is so extremely vulnerable that we often have no idea how much can go wrong. Hardly anyone pays attention to the puppy and the special needs of its individual character. We have invented rules, and now the puppy must learn them so that it doesn't bother us later. From the protection of the mother and the warmth of the sibling's nest to its own bed or crate. Sleeping alone is important. The dog shouldn't become too attached. During the day, it is carried around or put back in the crate. Now, it strongly depends on the dog's character. Some can cope with it, but others cannot. Our training system is based on the idea that everyone can and must learn what adult humans consider right. The important thing is that our rules protect our human needs. Our advantage is important. It has to work in a way that we humans suffer the least under the circumstances. We still want to go on vacation, go to the movies, go to work, meet friends. The dog no longer lives in a large family group or runs free. The dog now has a crate in a 3-room apartment and must wait there for 8 hours until we come home, take a walk around the block, and then go to the cinema. Without the dog, of course. Some dogs have never known any different. They endure it. Whether they are happy, I strongly doubt. And there are dogs that cannot endure it. They become a burden because they disturb our daily life. They bark, howl, and destroy furniture. But these are completely normal stress reactions. And where do they come from? Wasn't the dog taught early enough to stay alone? Maybe it was. But maybe the dog doesn't want that. And maybe it's the dog's right not to want that because it's not in its nature. because the dog is not designed or made for that. Dogs have always been needed by humans. They were trained and educated to make the best possible use of their abilities. Nowadays, many dogs are not needed at all, but the training method and understanding of the dog come from an environment that used dogs for our benefit. Whether the dog can handle it well is actually irrelevant. Even today, it's often about making the dog obedient. The dog is completely dependent on us. We control its entire life. And then we are surprised when our dog constantly follows us around and gets nervous when we leave it alone. Most dogs only have their human, and they simply don't like being alone. Besides, a dog's life can quickly become boring. So the dog wants to see what its human is doing or whether it can join in. The person suddenly panics because they feel pursued and controlled by their dog. Strange. Now the dog must be taught to stay in its place and not constantly follow us around. Some dogs learn this, others don't. Some dogs simply give up and shut down. Learned helplessness, the master skill. They are not relaxed, they are dead inside. Other dogs continue to rebel. Because they are under extreme stress, it's not in their nature to stay relaxed alone. They can learn it. More on that later. In my group, if a dog finds or does something interesting, the others come to check it out. No one is bothered as long as they keep their distance. When I do something, whether in the garden, washing dishes, or hanging laundry, my dogs come to watch. They are allowed to do that. We are social beings and live in a kind of substitute family. When I leave my dogs wait. In the group, they don't have as much of a problem being alone. I almost only have stray dogs that wouldn't need me, so the dependency factor is really low here. Still, none of them like it when I leave. When a member of a family or pack decides to go away alone, it is a free choice. Being cast out of the family used to mean death, but our dogs don't have free will. They are at the mercy of our whims. So let's establish first, a dog with separation anxiety is completely natural. Your dog is normal, not wrong or broken. But what can you do to support your dog? Fundamentally, regarding fear and learning success, your dog is not simply stressed or disobedient. Your dog has existential fear, even fear of death. If you don't come back home, it's entirely possible that the dog might starve. At least for your dog, this is a very realistic scenario. When this fear arises in your dog, it's almost impossible to teach them anything meaningful or to convince them otherwise. And that makes the topic of separation anxiety so challenging. The learning zone model consists of three zones. The comfort zone. You are at home, sharing chicken with rice, and all is well in the world. Your dog is happy and content, everything is in the green. But eventually, you have to go out, even if it's just to get more chicken and rice. In the learning zone, our stress level is still in the yellow range. We are receptive. It may be unfamiliar, but we can have new experiences and draw positive conclusions for them. In the panic zone, nothing works anymore. With all the fear and stress, we are incapable of acting and unable to learn anything useful. Therefore, it's important for your dog not to enter this red panic zone when they are supposed to learn something. If your dog is afraid when you leave the house, you must reduce the training to the smallest reasonable step that your dog can handle. It may be that you only go to the next room alone. I mentioned earlier that it is normal for our dogs to follow us because they are curious. It is important to distinguish whether your dog is curious and doesn't want to be left alone or if they can't stay alone. This is a very important distinction. It's okay if your dog follows you, as long as they can also leave you alone. My dogs check what I'm doing and then leave me alone. You can tell the difference by whether your dog shows signs of stress when left alone, even if it's just to take out the trash. If your dog isn't stressed by this, you already have a good head start. However, it If it causes stress, you need to take even smaller steps. The problem for many people is that they eventually have to go out. This training can take a lot of time. You need to observe your dog closely and practice consistently, several times a day. Initially, it's about creating a safe place where relaxation can be practiced. Then it's about leaving the dog there alone, even if you're just in the next room. Then doors are closed. Then cues like putting on shoes and picking up keys are practiced. It is time consuming, but doable. It's extremely important to always recognize whether the dog is still in the learning zone or already in the panic zone. If the dog is already in the panic zone, you can end the training immediately. You won't achieve anything there. Then take a break and start again later, and take a step back with smaller demands. Sounds exhausting? It is exhausting, but also a huge opportunity for both of you. It's doable with a lot of patience. By the way, a crate is neither good nor bad. A crate is what you make of it. Is it a cave, a hiding place where the dog feels safe and can go in and out whenever they want? Or is it a prison, a punishment? So, the trust technique, for example, is an ideal method to teach your dog to be relaxed when alone. There, both of you can learn how to keep your stress levels as low as possible to have truly relaxed new experiences. If you need personal support, feel free to write me a message. I would be happy to assist you and your dog online or offline in France. All the links to my offers you will find in the text below this podcast. I hope this was interesting. Thank you very much for listening, and I wish you and your dog a good time.